The first question is why? Well, history can show us why an override is necessary from time to time in communities like Melrose, and particularly in Melrose. Let's start where it started for me, 106 Walton Park. My family moved here when my mother was pregnant with me from Everett. They came here for a better life, and this was a wonderful neighborhood into which to grow up in. It seemed that everyone moved here at the same time. My neighbors were from East Boston, on the other side from Malden, from the North End, from Woburn, and some people had been here for generations. There were so many kids when I grew up here. And although it was a wonderful place to grow up, it wasn't all roses. Melrose traditionally has seen incredible crashes that dramatically affect our home values and our quality of life, particularly in education. It all started in 1981 with Proposition 2.5. I believe in Proposition 2.5, but it had a dramatic effect in the 80s. I remember as a kid, I was 10 years old. The Parks Department closed. The fields weren't kept up. Schools closed all around us, and so many people were laid off. We rebuilt slowly, but in 1991, 10 years later, when I just graduated from high school, and my sisters were still at Melrose High School, we saw an incredible crash, a crash to a point where the city was close to bankruptcy. And in 1992, an override was proposed not to build on what we had to make it better, but to save the city we loved. Totally avoidable. Again, we slowly rebuilt. And in 2001, right when I took office, we saw another crash. A crash that closed 2 schools, closed our fire stations, laid off 20% of our employees. First few weeks in office, I didn't know if we could make payroll. These crashes that so dramatically affect segments of generations, particularly in the public schools, can be totally avoided. Now, what is the litmus test for an override? Is it when we crash? Is it when schools close or people get laid off or fire departments close? It shouldn't be that. This override is about preserving what we have built for the long haul. And it's also about adding to our strengths. Isn't that what good planning is all about? This override is about building what we have built together for the next generation and to sustain the community that is the envy of the region. That's good planning. That's good planning. And that's why, if you learn from history, as I have, this proposal is sound. To not kick the can down the road of problems like they do in Washington and the state, but to deal with them in a proactive manner to avoid a crisis. That is what this override is all about.